Help desk agents are a lot of times going to need to manage users and groups and other things that are in Active Directory. And so you'll need to know how to get into Active Directory to make some changes. I'm in a Windows server, but you can also do this from a Windows 10 or 11 client if you install the remote admin tools or Windows Admin Center, which is a web-based tool. So inside the server, you would go to Server Manager, as you see here, then Tools, and you can see all these different Active Directory utilities. The most popular one is going to be Users and Computers. And here is my Active Directory, and you can see all these different folders on the left-hand side. And these folders are where the various different users and groups and computers are going to be. Here are the domain controllers, and you can see there's just one in this particular domain, but you may see many in yours. Here are all the computers that are members of the domain. Now, if you see a little arrow pointing down next to a name, that means that particular account has been deactivated. So you can easily just right-click and choose to enable the account to get it to start working again. I'm going to go down to my test folder, which is also called an organizational unit, and that's because we can apply group policies to any users or computers that are inside that particular folder. So we can see there's already a user called user3. So if user3 calls up and says that their password just doesn't work, you can choose to reset that password. So if I right click and choose reset password, then I can type a new password. And if it shows that the computer account is locked, then I can choose to also unlock the user's account. Now, there's another way to do this as well. So if I right-click and go into Properties instead, then I can go to where it says Account. Here's the tab that says Account. And what I want to do is I can choose to unlock the account from here. I can also choose to require the user to change their password at the next logout. So if I check this box and uncheck the password never expires, then their password will automatically expire at whatever the group policy amount is set to, which the default is around 45 days. So if I click OK, and then I right-click and choose to reset the password, you can see the box is checked that requires the user to change the password next logon. And the reason you want to do this is because you don't want to know what their password is. If you do know what their password is, then when something happens where something gets compromised, then you might be to blame for that because you knew their password and you could have actually caused some sort of a problem. So what you do is you give them a very generic password. It could be password 123 if you want, and you want to make sure that they log into it while you're still on the phone with them or communicating with them. Then they'll get a box that pops up that forces them to change their password after they type in the password 123. And then they'll change it to something only they know that you will not know. And once again, if they forget the password in the future or it expires on them, you can go ahead and repeat the steps as necessary. You may also need to create a new user. So I can right click and choose new and look at all the different types of things I can create here. These are all different objects within Active Directory. The most popular are going to be computer, group, and user, and sometimes printer. The rest of these, it's most likely you'll not have to deal with. So I'll choose to create a new user, and I'll call this one user4. Obviously, you're going to give it the name that the person gives you on the phone or in person. And then we're going to use the same user4 for the login name and click next. And now we'll put in the password. And once again, give them a generic password and force them to change it on their next logon. Click next and finish. Now, if you get this message that says it does not meet the minimum password policy requirements, this is tied back to that group policy I was just talking about earlier. Group policy requires that you have a specific length and complexity to your password. And you'll know what that complexity is because it will be given to you when you need to actually support users. So I'll add in some additional characters and complexity, click next, and click finish. And now I've met the complexity requirements and the password has been changed. Make sure you tell what those complexity requirements are to the user so when they try to type in their new password, they'll be able to meet those. I'm going to create a new group, and creating groups is a great management tactic because it allows us to add a lot of users into a group and then just add the group, say, into the shared or security tab of any shared folder. So I'll call this one group 1, but you can call it whatever you'd like. And you can see under the scope, by default, it's a global group, which means that it's going to handle a multiple amount of domains within a single forest. And then the group type is going to be security. And that's because you're going to assign this group rights to specific resources, such as a printer or a shared folder, among many other things. Distribution is just for email, and typically most of the time you're going to see email being hosted online. So you'll most likely not have to create a distribution group, but you never know. So I'll click OK. There's group 1. Now I'm going to add in members to group 1, and I'll add in user 3 and user 4. So that way, if I want to assign resources, I can once again do those to this group. And then, of course, if I want to add users in the future, I only need to add users to the group. I don't have to add users to the resource. Now I'm going to go to a shared folder. Actually, I'm going to create a shared folder. And this is another thing that you'll get a lot of calls about, and that is users who want to gain access to a folder that they should have access to do their job, and they can't do it. And that's because the shared folder may not have been set up properly. So I'll create a new folder. I'll call this data. So we're going to have this, the data share. I'll right click once again and choose properties. And now I'm going to give rights to that folder. So I'll click on, I like advanced sharing because it gives you additional options, but you can choose the easy sharing if you'd like. And I'll leave the share name as data, and the permissions, I'm going to want to remove everyone and just add in domain users, because everyone means even people outside of the domain can have access, and that's not secure. I'll give them full access and click OK, click OK. Now I'll go to this security tab, and here's where I'm going to add in group 1. So I'll click add, type in group 1, check name, click OK. And I'll give group 1 access. And you can see some other accesses here for other groups that are inherited from the parent folder. So I'll click OK here, click close. And now if I do what's called a UNC path, the Universal Naming Convention, then I should be able to see my shared folder called data. So I'll put in //, and I'll just put in localhost, which is just another name for whatever name the server is. And there's my data folder. It also shows netlogon and sysvol, which means that it's a domain controller as well. So I'll double click on data, and I can right click and choose to create some new files. I'll call this one test. Now when a user logs in, if they are a member of group 1, then they'll have access to any of the files and folders that are inside this particular data folder. And if they call to complain that they don't have access to it, then you know now what to do. You need to add that user into the group called group 1 if they are authorized to do so. Managing user properties and passwords from Active Directory can solve many problems of password resets and lockouts for many users.